The miracle doctor won't be a kept man. My heart belongs ashore. Chapter 441. Holy shit! Where is that gorgeous woman from? Oh my god, she's mine. This is the woman Mr. Hayden and Mr. Sunny were interested in. Fuck Mr. Hayden and Mr. Sunny. No one can touch her when I'm here. When a man with the alias Hero Wanderer sent that text, everyone in the group fell silent instantly. No one dared say that they wanted her anymore. Hero Wanderer smiled triumphantly and tagged the person who had just uploaded the photo. Let me know if you find their location. Congratulations, Mr. Maddox. Mr. Maddox is getting laid tonight. Mr. Maddox, have fun with Snow. Compliments and praises poured into the chat. Maddox Webb, also known as Hero Wanderer, had already begun dreaming of the beautiful moments awaiting him. In his eyes, whatever he wanted he would get. Kiran and Snow did not know they were being watched. Kiran drove through the streets of the city. It was late at night, so there were not many cars around. The hustle and bustle of the city had subsided, but the city's charm still lingered. The way the city lights illuminated the city's darkness was just like how a human's beauty could cover up their flaws. Hayden and Sunny were part of the city's flaws. "Thank you, honey," Snow said affectionately all of a sudden while in the passenger seat. Kiran was stunned, and he put his hand on Snow's warm and bouncy thighs. "What are you thanking me for?" "This isn't the gear stick," Snow said, shooting him a seducing look. "Did I feel wrong?" Kiran teased and moved his hand to the other leg. Disgusting hand. Slap. Snow slapped hard, but her teasing face made her look even more beautiful. She was grateful that Kiran comforted her well. "Snow, no matter what happens to the York family, I hope you understand one thing." Kiran squeezed her slender thighs. "Say it." Snow bit her lips tightly, restraining her temptation. "There will be a lot of bloodshed involved in the rebuilding of the York family, and we need a woman to lead the long-term development of the York family. We need you to steer the course." "Why not Lillian?" Snow asked curiously. "She's too pretty." Kiran looked out the window. Snow trembled in disappointment. Any girl would be upset when her husband said that another woman was beautiful, and she was no exception. Beautiful women aren't meant to be life partners. Kiran held Snow's hand. "So, I'm ugly?" Snow teased him. "Ugly?" Kiran raised his eyebrows and was about to continue. "You're not allowed to mention the ugly woman," Snow reminded him while blushing. Kiran smiled and shook his head, saying, "My mother wanted to find me a beautiful wife because she was beautiful too, but she missed one important detail." "What is it?" "When she slept with my father never saw her true face." "How do you know?" "It's just my guess. Perhaps it was because of my birth that exposed their relationship and caused the York family to be destroyed," Kiran said with a hint of pain. "That can't be. I don't know either, but I really got the best of both worlds with my looks." "I guess you don't look that bad," Snow said while blushing. Kiran did not tease her. "My mother was probably afraid that Lillian would not want to marry me, so she gave us the love spell in the hope that we would be somehow connected forever." Snow did not speak. "Nothing is as selfless as a parent's love." Kiran took a deep breath and added, "It's also the greatest sorrow." Snow came to her senses and grabbed Kiran's hand. "So, you married an ugly woman instead?" Pfft. This time Kiran was laughing. "If anyone says you're ugly, I'll shut them up. You said that Lillian is beautiful, and I'm ugly just now. She's an ethereal kind of beauty, and she's not my type anyway. I like my wife who looks cold on the outside, but on the inside she's wild and cute at the same time." Kiran laughed. "Fuck off, pervert." "Honey, that's unfair. You got into my bed first, and you—" "If you say any more, I'll jump out of the car?" Snow was embarrassed. "It's you who showed me what love is." Kiran changed his words. "You." "Fift." Snow laughed and kissed Kiran's hand. "I forgive you." "Thank you, ma'am. Hey." The two of them talked and laughed, but they had a knot in their hearts. The more their love for each other grew, the more Snow wanted to give Kiran a child. Kiran drove onto the highway of Nimbus Hollows to admire the beautiful and vibrant city when suddenly a sports car engine roared behind him. He looked into the mirror and saw a dozen sports cars of various kinds tailing him. He moved to the slow lane to give way to the cars, not wanting to bother about these street racers. Snow just wanted to sit quietly with Kiran too, not wanting to be disturbed. Their car finally switched into the slow lane. However, the leader of the fleet was driving a limited edition white Bugatti Veyron. Other sports cars like Ferrari, Lamborghini, and more followed behind like a flock of birds flying in formation, occupying all 4 lanes on the highway. Kiran was surprised. What was going on? They did not look like they were racing. In the Bugatti Veyron, Maddox had been staring at Kiran's car, or more precisely at Snow. After waiting for some time, he still had not received any news, so he asked his investigator to give him their real-time location, and he led his people to chase after them. He saw Snow in the passenger seat with her long hair and blue sleeveless dress. Just one glance made him burn with desire. All sorts of actions and positions flooded his mind. Maddox excitedly shouted into his headset, "I found her, surround them." "Yes, sir." Soon, the shouts and laughter of many men and women were heard. "Maddox, have you decided on a position?" "I have some pills, Maddox. Do you want any?" "Titsk! Maddox is already strong enough. If he takes the pills, won't he exhaust Snow to death?" Filthy words and thoughts were ringing non-stop. Maddox happily straightened his back, ready to fight. Kiran felt like something was wrong when he saw the car model. Although they spoke in their cars, Kiran still heard them from his convertible sports car, and his face turned cold. These fools are just asking for trouble. Chapter 442. Just as Kiran cursed at them, Snow quickly held his hand. "Honey, don't be impulsive. Can you not kill people?" Her moist eyes looked at Kiran nervously as she pleaded. In Snow's eyes, it would be easy to kill those spoiled brats, but the consequences would be grave. Kiran was ready to kill anyone who violated his wife. In his mind, nobody could do that to his wife, but Snow's look of concern calmed him, so he said emotionally, "The York family is bound to prosper with a mistress like you." Snow looked at him in surprise. "A woman isn't just about her looks, but her heart." Kiran said that and stepped on the accelerator, zooming toward Bayville in the Ferrari. Snow let out a sigh of relief, but she could not stop thinking about his words. She was touched that he held back his anger and put down his ego for her, so she said, "Thank you, honey." Kiran smiled. "Honey, they'll die for sure." "You." Snow was surprised. "But we don't have to do anything." Kiran already had a smile on his face. He took out his phone and took a photo of Snow. "Why are you taking a photo?" Snow quickly asked. "To look for people to kill them." Kiran smirked and sent the photo to Lindsay. Meanwhile, Lindsay was on the bed, unable to sleep. She was tossing and turning, and all she could think about was Kiran. When she received Kiran's message, she felt as if she had won the lottery. When she clicked on it and saw the beautiful photo of Snow, she was angry. Was he trying to say that she was not as beautiful as Snow? Lindsay sat up and called Kiran. When Kiran saw her calling, he smiled and said to Snow, "The person who will act on our behalf is here." When Snow saw Lindsay's name displayed, she was confused. Kiran answered without explaining. "Kiran, you bastard. What do you mean by that?" Lindsay wanted to overpower him. Kiran did not care. He simply said, "I like to see you in dresses like this. In 1 hour, I want to see you wearing a dress like that. Wait for me at the highway intersection from Nimbus Hollows to Bayville." Lindsay immediately exploded. "You pervert!" Kiran hung up before she could finish. Snow looked at him confusedly. "Are you making her disguise as me?" Kiran nodded. "Yes, the cars behind us will follow us all the way to Bayville. Then I'll have her sit in my car so you can go home and sleep. What do you think she would do when she hears those people catcalling her?" You're evil." Snow shook her head. Kiran smiled. "I'm not evil. I'm just using my brain." "What do you mean?" "Imperial Dragon relies on strength. If my speculations are correct, there are many powerful forces behind PowerHub. Since we don't know who they are, we can use these pests as bait, don't you think?" Kiran looked at the car behind him from the corner of his eye. Gasp! Snow took a breath. "You're a genius. It's time to stir up those forces and let them act. Then, we can use that opportunity to reap the benefits." Kiran looked out the window with a firm, piercing gaze. Snow nodded. "Call Serena and ask her to take you home from the highway," Kiran said. Snow called, and Serena agreed immediately. Meanwhile, Lindsay was overjoyed when she heard that Kiran liked long skirts even though she was scolding him earlier. She immediately called someone to purchase the dress for her. The person quickly responded that the shop was closed and they could not get it. Lindsay was furious. She immediately asked them to break in and steal that dress. She told her secretary that she would buy out the store at 3 times the price tomorrow. The shop owner wanted to call the police about a break-in, but after hearing the offer, he agreed. Lindsay spared no expense and spared no effort just to let Kiran see her beauty in the sleeveless blue dress. Little did she know, Kiran was only using her as bait. Maddox and the others had been speeding up to catch up with Kiran. They wanted to surround Kiran's car and take Snow away, so they slowed down and moved closer, but Kiran suddenly sped off without giving them a chance. When they sped up to catch up again, Kiran's Ferrari zoomed off like a meteor in the night sky. They could not even catch sight of the tail of his car. Fortunately, they knew that the car was from Bayville, so that was where they were heading. Everyone was furious and filled with resentment. "Thank you for your hard work today. After I have my fun with Snow, all guys can take turns," Maddox said angrily to motivate them. "Wow. Thanks, Mr. Maddox." "All hail, Mr. Maddox. Let's have fun with her together." A bunch of lewd comments came from the men. "Mr. Maddox, what do the women get?" some women asked boldly. "You can play with her too if you want," Maddox smiled. "Ha ha ha, we don't like women," the women said one after another. "I'll give you money," Maddox said generously. "Thank you, Mr. Maddox." The women thanked him in cloying voices as if they wanted to curry favor with him. Maddox's promise immediately motivated the group of spoiled brats. They were eager to stop them and fuck Snow in front of Kiran. They chased him with all their might, but there was still no sight of his car. Lindsay saw that she still had 30 minutes left, so she was ready to go out. She stood in front of the mirror, looking at herself. Her face was beautiful, her nose was straight, and her eyes looked as if there was a clear spring flowing inside. The thought of Kiran seeing her in a dress like that made her feel like a concubine who was about to be blessed by the king. She was so happy and touched that her eyes started to tear up. Her elegance and aloofness combined made her overflow with feminine charm. Goddess was the best description of how she looked. "Kiran, I must sleep with you," Lindsay said to encourage herself. She turned to grab her car keys and went downstairs. Chapter 10 minutes later, Kiran got off the highway and immediately saw Serena's car parked on the side of the road. He drove over and stopped for Snow to get off. Kiran hugged her waist and gave her a long and deep kiss. "Tisk, more PDA." Serena sat in the car and shouted at them. Kiran let Snow go and said gently, "Be a good girl and wait for me at home. I'll wash myself clean and wait for you naked, okay?" Snow teased him. Kiran was surprised and speechless. How he wished he was not under the restraints of the love spell. Snow was laughing happily. She opened the door and got out of the car before waving him off. "Bye, honey," Kiran waved back. Snow felt nice being able to tease Kiran. She did not have to worry about Kiran with any other woman because he would not be able to sleep with them anyway. Then she got into Serena's car. "Is her husband going on a date with someone else?" Serena started the car and teased her best friend. "He is. Damn, who?" Serena almost stalled the car. "Let's go first. Someone is chasing after us," Snow reminded. "Stupid playboys." To help her blow off steam, Serena turned to Kiran and gave him a middle finger. Her nails were filled with black magic, looking as if they were painted with shiny black nail polish. Her nails looked alluring under the shining light, but Kiran merely glared at her angrily. Not even the slightest bit threatened, Serena drove off. Snow's eyes were full of smiles, but she said nothing. "Are you relieved now that your husband is safe?" Serena's anger dissipated and she asked with a smile. "Aren't I safer?" Snow shrugged. "I want to go back to the Maui tribe and find a way to break the spell so he can sleep with you." Serena was reminded of Yvonne's promise of helping her. "Is there really a way?" Snow was instantly intrigued and full of anticipation. "It seems like you really want a man," Serena teased her instead of answering her question. "Bitch, don't be shy." "Nonsense. What's wrong with wanting a man?" The two of them drove away, chatting noisily. Serena did not ask what was going on because she trusted that everything Kiran was doing now was important business. Kiran parked his car on the side of the road and saw Lindsay's car approaching. Lindsay saw Kiran's car too, so she parked and got out of the car. Kiran looked at Lindsay's beautiful face. She had deep black eyes, perfectly shaded eyebrows, peachy blush cheeks, and an aloof expression. Although she was wearing the same blue sleeveless dress as Snow, she gave off a different feeling, maturity. Although her mature, womanly aura was not as enchanting as that of a younger woman, she had a different charm to her. Coupled with her aloofness, every move she made appeared all the more elegant and graceful. Having such a beautiful woman as his maid, he could not help but smile. When Lindsay saw his gaze, she was filled with confidence, thinking that her beauty had surprised him. However, she noticed the disdain and sense of triumph in his smile. Instantly, she was filled with anger, and she stared at him resentfully. Kiran ignored it and pointed to the passenger seat, gesturing for her to get in the car. Lindsay was happy to see that Snow was not there, and her confidence surged again. She walked to the car and opened the door gently with her delicate hands. She lifted her left leg wrapped in black stockings and slowly stretched it into the car. Her movements were elegant and unhurried, exuding a strong allure. Kiran was surprised. She was like a shapeshifter. Although she was arrogant, she was still well-behaved in front of him. The sleeveless blue dress fit snugly on her body, making her look slim. Her exposed skin was as white as snow, seemingly able to illuminate the darkness. The car was instantly filled with her graceful and luxurious aura, and she looked dazzling. When Lindsay noticed Kiran's admiring gaze, she thought that he was captivated by her beauty. She was secretly happy, so she upped her elegance, accentuating her tiny waist, perfect curves, and beautiful back. She was a light shining in the dark. She caught the eyes of Maddox and the others. They had been chasing after him all the way, and when they caught sight of Lindsay's back, it aroused the desires of all the men. All kinds of crazy positions began flooding their minds. They thought that Lindsay was Snow, so they were filled with desire and imagination. Kiran saw their cars through the rearview mirror and knew they had taken the bait. It all boiled down to how Lindsay decided to eat them up. Completely unaware, Lindsay looked at Kiran proudly and flirted. "How do I look?" While she spoke, she straightened her body to show off her perfect curves. She also pulled her skirt up, revealing her perfect fair calves under the black stockings. She looked even more sexy and enchanting. "You're a little shorter than my wife," Kiran thought for a moment and responded calmly. "First." Lindsay took a deep breath. She wanted to retort with a mocking remark, but she held it back, seemingly suffocating. Sigh. Honesty hurts sometimes. Kiran shook his head and sighed.
Were basically looking at me with googly eyes just now,
Lindsay said arrogantly. "Lock the door. I'm taking you for a ride," he said calmly. Since this was the highway intersection, they could not wipe out those bullies there. Lindsay did not know what Kiran's intentions were. She thought that he was lying to her on purpose, so she smirked and said, "As long as you know that I'm beautiful." Kiran did not speak. He started the car but did not move. "Do you want to have some fun in the car later?" Lindsay seduced him. "Are you in your safe period?" Kiran asked seriously. "At least I'm not on my period." Lindsay thought that Kiran had agreed, so she said smugly. Kiran was smiling inwardly as he was expecting shit to go down very soon. Maddox and the others had already exited the toll and chased after Kiran's car at full speed, trying to stop him. Kiran floored the accelerator and the Ferrari roared off like an arrow, zooming into the night once again. Lindsay raised her eyebrows, feeling as if something was off. Chapter 444. "Kiran, what are those cars doing?" Lindsay asked, looking in the rearview mirror. "I don't know." Kiran pretended not to know. "Stop pretending. When I was busy playing with sports cars, you were still in diapers." Lindsay glared at Kiran angrily for lying. "You make it sound like you're much older than me. Are you not going to tell me?" Lindsay got even more annoyed, and her elegance from earlier vanished. "I really don't know who they are. Why don't you help me deal with them?" Kiran said with a half smile. Lindsay snorted. "Why should I? Is my maid going against my orders?" Slap. Kiran slapped Lindsay's slender legs without any warning. Lindsay let out a seductive moan. Kiran withdrew his hands, but she could still feel it lingering on her. The feeling was out of this world. Bite him. "Kiran, do you really think of me as your maid?" Lindsay was so angry that she was going to. "Do you not want the silver needle anymore?" Kiran smiled. When Lindsay heard the silver needle, she felt a wave of electricity in her body, and an indescribable feeling overwhelmed her. It felt like she was in a drunken, dream-like state, sinking into oblivion. "I don't care what they'll do to you," Kiran said calmly. "You would just watch me get bullied?" Lindsay looked at him and cursed inwardly. "Fuck you! You're not a man. How could you let a beautiful woman like me get bullied by animals?" Kiran was calm and natural. "It's your business anyway. It has nothing to do with me." "Kiran, can you still call yourself a man?" Lindsay could not bear it anymore and shouted at him. Her peachy cheeks were turning pale. Kiran did not respond, but he put his hand on her thighs and stroked it gently. "You can ask your sister, Yvonne, if I'm a man. I bet she would know." Hearing Yvonne's name made Lindsay feel like needles were pricking her heart. She found out about the love spell the same night, too. If he got together with Yvonne because of the love spell, did that mean she would not have a chance? Kiran had her whole heart, but because of her arrogance, she said, "I guess your wife is just eye candy to you, huh?" "That's none of your business. I can give her anything she wants, such as the feeling you get from the silver needle." Kiran gently rubbed and kneaded Lindsay's thighs. Lindsay's whole body seemed to be charged with electricity. Her eyes were as beautiful as silk, her red lips parted slightly, and her body felt weak. What are you doing?" Lindsay grabbed Kiran's hand, afraid he was going to cause more trouble, but equally afraid he would move his hand away. She was conflicted, but her eyes looked resentful and bitter. "Find those people and make them go away." Kiran kneaded her thighs again and again. "So can't you do that easily?" Lindsay's charming face was flushed now, and her breath was hot and panting slightly. "Isn't it a shame for the master to do things himself when he has a maid?" Kiran said casually. For some reason, being touched by Kiran and being called a maid made her even happier. I'll make a call right now." Saying that, Lindsay took her phone to make a call and quickly shared her location. Kiran grinned. He had no intention of bribing her or taking advantage of her. He simply did this to make Lindsay appear even more alluring, arousing the animal instincts of those behind them. Lindsay was already beautiful, but she looked different when she was longing to be loved by a man. Kiran's car slowed down. On the one hand, he wanted to give the cars behind a chance, and on the other hand, he wanted to give Lindsay's people time to catch up. The game was getting better and better. Kiran was not in a rush for Lindsay to deal with them. He was just interested to see what would happen after she did. Kiran was eager to uncover the mystery behind PowerHub. His car finally stopped outside the construction site of a building. As soon as he stopped, Lindsay unbuckled her seatbelt and pounced onto him enthusiastically as if she wanted to become one with Kiran. Kiran saw that the cars behind him were almost here, so instead of pushing her away, he held Lindsay's hips and lifted her up from the passenger seat to his lap. Lindsay thought that Kiran was finally ready to have her. She was so happy that she took the initiative to kiss Kiran's hair and press her body close to his. She was already beautiful enough to make others' souls leave their bodies, but such moves from her would drive people mad. Meanwhile, Maddox and the others finally caught up with them after chasing them all night. When they saw the two of them in such an intimate position in the driver's seat, their first thought was that they were having sex in the car. They were already having despicable thoughts about Snow, but seeing that made them eager to have her immediately. Little did they know that she was not Snow, but Lindsay. Not to mention Lindsay fell for Kiran's acting. She never had a grudge against these people, and she only dealt with them because Kiran told her to. Now that they were about to interrupt her moment of pleasure with Kiran, she was so angry that she wanted to kill those people immediately. Maddox and the others were unaware that Lindsay already hated their guts. Lindsay would not be afraid of these second-generation rich kids even if they were in the capital city, let alone in Bayville. She did not even bother about those people approaching. She just hugged Kiran closer, wanting to savor this beautiful moment. Maddox and the others got out of their car and walked over. They saw the two in the headlights of their car. The two seemed calm, as if they did not take them seriously at all, which aggravated them. Everyone looked at Maddox for instructions. Maddox sneered at Kiran and Lindsay. The more, the merrier, right? Can we join? Ha ha. The people Maddox brought laughed obscenely. They want to have fun together? Kiran spanked Lindsay's round buttocks and teased. Lindsay felt as if she was fully charged with electricity, and her skin was glowing. However, she was furious that the arrival of these people stopped her from completely letting loose. The anger instantly rushed to the top of her head, and she said, "Have fun with your mom." Chapter 445. Maddox and the others were waiting to ridicule them, but they did not expect to get scolded by Lindsay. However, instead of getting angry, they were even more aroused. Holy fuck, she's a feisty one. Of course she is. Why else would she do it in the car? In that case, let's satisfy her needs. The obscene remarks poured out instantly, insulting Lindsay. It was rare for Lindsay to have such an opportunity with Kiran. She had previously tried always to seduce him, but he never budged as if those derogatory remarks about her were true. That realization added fuel to her fire. Just as she was about to yell, Kiran hugged her and opened the car door. Lindsay got anxious. She had missed the opportunity and all the feelings she had earlier were gone. She angrily pointed at Maddox and the others and said, "Do you all want to die so badly?" Lindsay cursed while brushing her hair away, revealing her beautiful face. Maddox and the others wanted to see Snow's beauty up close, but when they saw it was not Snow, they were shocked. However, they were soon captivated by Lindsay's small face, moist eyes, long eyelashes, small nose, and red lips. Her fair arms shone under the light, enchanting their souls. Her hair moved around, making her look even more charming. Her womanly aura overwhelmed them like waves crashing on the shore. The hearts of Maddox and the others melted. Beautiful. Even more charming. If the Snow in the photo was elegant and pure, then the Lindsay before them was elegant and mature. Her rosy cheeks from her passion with Kiran just now made her look all the more alluring. A woman like that was simply the best in the eyes of those men. She had the face of an angel and the body of a devil, making her incredibly attractive. Holy crap, how many pretty women are there in Bayville? Let's have fun with this woman first. Snow can wait. Filthy words came out of their mouths again. Maddox was already making his way to her, acting as if Kiran did not exist. His plan was simple. He would fuck Lindsay first, then fuck Snow. Snow had nowhere to run anyway. Maddox made up his mind on the spot and stepped forward imposingly. "Gorgeous, you're coming with me today. I'm going to sleep with you." His greedy eyes lingered on Lindsay's body. He could not wait to get his hands all over her. At that moment, Lindsay was prettier than any woman he had slept with in the past. The women with him were all wearing heavy makeup and had artificially sculpted faces. Lindsay's natural beauty was on a different level. All of you are going to die. Apart from being bullied by Kiran, she had never been this angered before. In her eyes, she was a queen who decided the fate of others. These people were merely clowns. Die? Maddox was not angry, but he smiled and said, "Don't worry. We'll make sure you die too." Ha ha. The others laughed wildly. Even when Lindsay's celebrity-like face was full of anger, Maddox and the others were not afraid. Instead, they were smiling at her as if they were admiring her. Lindsay felt as if she was being stared at by a pack of wolves, but she was not afraid as she had encountered situations like these countless times these past years. Other than Kiran, no other man could touch her. With that in mind, she walked over to Maddox. Maddox looked at her body swaying as she walked. She looked extremely graceful, just like a model walking a catwalk. Her slender waist was even more eye-catching. Maddox was full of envy when he pictured her sitting on Kiran's lap. She should be his instead. "Are you that impatient, gorgeous?" Maddox rubbed his hands together and walked to Lindsay, staring with joy at her body in that sleeveless blue dress. He was eager to pounce on her. They walked closer. Maddox looked at her beautiful face and sexy body while opening his arms to hug her. Anger and disgust flashed in Lindsay's eyes. Suddenly, she lifted her right leg and aimed it at Maddox's approaching body. Her knees touched her stomach before she kicked her elegant calves at his crotch. Maddox was about to pounce on her when he started screaming in agony. In the next second, he came to his senses and gripped his stomach and crotch. "Mommy!" With a thud, he fell to the ground and wailed as he rolled around. Even Kiran looked at him with sympathy. That must have hurt like hell. "Mr. Maddox!" His companions rushed over and surrounded him. "Don't mind me. Get her and make sure she's responsible for healing me today," Maddox growled. "Damn you! How dare you attack Mr. Maddox?" Maddox's companion yelled and ran toward Lindsay. "Honey, save me!" Lindsay was quick-witted. She took the opportunity to run to Kiran. Maddox's companions thought that Kiran was the one who gave her such courage. How else would a woman like her be so daring? They all looked at Kiran, wanting to kill him first. However, what they saw next was even more shocking. Kiran had turned around and run away faster than a hare. Maddox's companions were in a daze. Lindsay was almost going insane. "Kiran, you bastard!" She was furious after she realized that she was being used as a body double for Snow, and now that she was in danger, Kiran had run away. She started chasing after him, and Maddox's companions started chasing after her. Kiran jumped in his car and drove off. Everyone was stupefied. Chapter 446. Some people could be so shameless. If there were no shameless people, there would not be any more bad people in this world. If there were not any bad boys, how were women going to fall in love? It was because of these shameless existences that made life so interesting. However, no one in this world was more shameless than Kiran. Men tended to put on airs and even play the hero to impress women, but Kiran was acting like a coward, running away faster than a hare. Lindsay began doubting her beauty. If the people chasing her had not boosted her self-esteem, she would have thought herself so ugly that she scared him away. Ha ha ha. Maddox's companions were angry, but they could not help but laugh at that scene. Holy shit, that's one weird man. Damn, it's the first time I've ever seen anyone like him. What the fuck? How can a guy like that score a goddess like her? Is she blind? Maddox's companions were making fun of him. Maddox stood up despite the pain. To him, Lindsay looked like meat on a chopping board, waiting to be chopped up. How strong could a woman be? Her confidence earlier was probably because she had Kiran as a backup. Lindsay was standing there blankly. She was not nervous or scared, but she was angry and humiliated. She had completely lost her dignity as a woman. She loved Kiran with all her heart, but in Kiran's eyes, she was nothing. When she was in danger, that guy ran away faster than a hare. He did not want to save her, nor did he even give a damn. Her love for Kiran disappeared in an instant like a popped bubble, and it was replaced with bitterness. She looked in the direction where Kiran's car took off, but it took her some time before she shouted, "Kiran, I must make you sleep with me." In the quiet suburbs late at night, her angry shouts traveled so far that Kiran could hear her. Kiran smirked. Not only was Lindsay going to kill those people, but now that she was humiliated, she would go extra crazy. As for Lindsay's safety, he had already estimated that her people would arrive soon, so it was not a good idea for him to stay. His only regret was not being able to see how those spoiled brats got killed. Maddox and the others were still having a good time, feeling as if they had just witnessed the funniest joke. When they heard Lindsay's loud declaration, they were shocked. Was this woman out of her mind? After being abandoned by the man, she still wanted to sleep with him. Was she insane or just that shameless? Lindsay's graceful body looked even more attractive as she trembled in anger. Her long blue dress swayed with her body's movements as if it were swaying in the wind. Beautiful, captivating, just wow, someone shouted, instantly livening up the atmosphere. Soon, everyone was howling like wolves. Maddox and the others swarmed around Lindsay like bees to honey. Each of them had different preferences when it came to women's body parts. Some liked eyes, some liked lips, and some liked hands. Just then, Lindsay calmed down and glared at those people with cold eyes. If you don't want to die, you better get out of here right now. Maddox and the others were again shocked. They thought that Lindsay would beg and surrender to them by now, but to their surprise, she was still as arrogant as ever. Damn it, I'm going to shut that mouth of hers soon. Maddox looked at Lindsay and cursed. What are you going to use to shut her mouth? Looking at these men admiring Lindsay like crazy, some women were filled with envy and hatred, so they provoked him even more. I'm sure you know. Lindsay was about to explode in anger. She had encountered far more repulsive men than those spoiled brats. These brats were nothing compared to them. What a bunch of crude clowns. Lindsay looked livid. After cursing at them, she was going to leave. However, Maddox blocked Lindsay. He did not expect her to be so unfazed, let alone be so bold. He reached out to grab her arm. Slap! Lindsay slapped Maddox across his face. Never in his wildest dreams would he have expected her to hit him a second time. A fragile woman like her should be afraid by now, being surrounded by people like them. This was not how the plot was supposed to go. Maddox felt like a fool tonight, and his humiliation turned into anger. Go fucking get her. Everyone immediately rushed over to her. Lindsay's training in basic combat skills and self-defense techniques was not in vain. She even managed to knock down a few of them. However, she was still outnumbered. Soon, there were sounds of clothes ripping. Lindsay was getting anxious now, and her movements were getting slower. Rip. Rip. There were more sounds of her blue dress ripping. Her beautiful body was half exposed, and everyone instantly fired up. Gorgeous. I love her feet. After their obscene comments, everyone's hands began to show no mercy, and the women began taking photos and videos to relieve their hatred for her. Lindsay was actually scared now. She hated Kiran so much that she swore that if she escaped from the clutches of these demons, she would stab him to death. This was fucked up. Maddox and the others stared at her in her ripped clothes. Their eyes started to glow green as if this was the finale of their madness. Vroom. Suddenly, a sports car engine sounded from the darkness. The silhouette of a red car flew like a sharp sword cutting through the night sky, roaring toward them in the blink of an eye. Chapter 447. Maddox and the others were only momentarily surprised to hear the sound of the sports car's engine. The only thing they could think about was Kiran running away, and they could not hold in their laughter. That coward is back. You're right. He's here to let us make fun of him. Making him watch while we mess with his woman makes it even more exciting. Maddox and the others began to laugh and joke without paying attention to the arrival of the sports car. On the contrary, Lindsay's eyes showed a glimmer of hope. Your death is near. Maddox and the others were not even the slightest bit threatened by her growl. Instead, they were pleased to hear that. Let us die a quick death. We can't wait. Chester, what happened? Someone saw the man collapsing in the middle of his sentence, so he asked curiously. Ah. The woman next to Chester could not help but scream in horror when she saw him bleeding from every opening on his face. Everyone looked over and noticed that there was a glistening dagger stuck on his back. Who's? Someone shouted bravely, but as soon as he made a sound, he felt his neck tense up, and he fell to the ground without even making a sound. Another one down. Maddox and the others were terrified. They should all die, Lindsay said again to vent her hatred. Ah. Before Maddox and the others could say a word, more cries were heard, and more people fell to the ground dead, including the women. Whoever that was, they were merciless. Maddox felt his soul leave his body. He immediately sobered up. Run! Now! His warning woke the others up from their dream too. They saw a window of opportunity and began to flee. As soon as they moved, the people around them collapsed even faster without them even realizing why. One by one, they all fell to the ground. Maddox was still standing, but at that moment he might as well have collapsed because a beautiful and enchanting woman with shoulder-length hair stood in front of him. The woman was as seductive as a devil, but the bloody dagger in her hand made her look like Satan. Sonny, that man deserves to die the most, Lindsay said to the woman. I got it, Sunny Knight said while glaring at Maddox. Maddox's gaze fell upon Sunny. Her narrow, elongated eyes were striking and unique, but her lethal gaze made him feel as though every ounce of his energy had been drained. Her hair cascaded down her shoulders, her skin flawless. She might appear alluring and beautiful to others, but in his eyes at that moment, she was a man-eating devil incarnate. Well, who are you? Maddox mustered up the courage to ask. Whoosh! A white flash appeared before his eyes. Ah! Maddox felt a sharp pain in his left arm. He looked down and saw that his left arm had been cleanly sliced off by the dagger. She did not answer his question, but he was already in despair. The woman in front of him looked calm. Her narrow eyes shined even brighter at the sight of blood. Maddox realized that he had messed with the wrong people today. Plop! He kneeled in front of Lindsay. 2 was wrong. Please, spare me. Thud, thud, thud. He began groveling at her feet, hitting his head on the ground. Lindsay ignored him and walked to the car. Maddox was petrified. "Don't kill me! I'm the son of Mason Webb, the CEO of Nimbus Hollow's Prince Corporation." When the woman heard the name, she hesitated, so she turned to look at Lindsay with the dagger in her hand. Lindsay did not say a word. She simply got into the car and drove off. Maddox was stunned. Woo. White light flashed again, followed by red light. His right arm was broken. Ow! Maddox fell to the ground and rolled around frantically, screaming in agony. The woman swung her hand again. Before Maddox could make any sound, his throat was slit, killing him instantly. Maddox's eyes widened while staring at the woman in front of him. He never dreamed that he would die in such an unfair way. The woman seemed at peace when killing those people. She quickly put the pile of bodies together and drove their cars to one spot before leaking the gasoline from the cars. Looking at the piled corpses and dozens of sports cars gathered together, Sunny's face remained the same. To her, it seemed like those lives were not human lives and those sports cars were not cars. She took out a woman's cigarette, lit it, and inhaled deeply. She blew out 3 perfect smoke rings and stared into the night sky as if she were enjoying this life. Halfway through the cigarette, she turned around gracefully and threw the cigarette into the pool of gasoline flowing from the cars. The woman flew away like a ghost while the cars behind her began to burn ferociously. Soon, there were rumbling explosions causing a raging fire. It lit up the entire night sky, shaking up all of Bayville. However, the woman looked emotionless, as if the people she killed were not people but just mere ants. She looked toward the darkness on the east side. Kiran was sitting in the car, meeting the woman's gaze. It was like they saw each other, but also did not see each other at the same time. He drove away, but still turned around and came back to make sure that Lindsay was not in danger. That woman and her methods of killing shocked Kiran to the core. He was even deeply attracted to her. Perhaps this was the definition of a beautiful and elegant killer. Buzz. His phone rang. Kiran did not have to look to know who was calling. He took out his phone and saw that his guess was right. It was Lindsay. "Kiran, you motherfucker!" Kiran did not expect her to start off with that. Not only was she angry, but she sounded like she could kill someone. "Kiran, you bastard! Lindsay was about to burst into flames. "I'm about to hug my wife to sleep. Do you have anything else to say?" Kiran smiled. "Why can't you just drop dead?" Lindsay was so angry that she could not find the words, so she just cursed angrily. "You're not gorgeous enough." Kiran laughed at his joke. Lindsay was speechless. She immediately changed direction and drove toward Snow's place. Chapter 448. At Snow's house, Kiran came in with bags of food in his hands. Snow was happy to see Kiran come back safely. She rushed over excitedly to hug and kiss him on the cheek. "Honey, take this. We haven't eaten yet." Kiran handed the food to Snow. Only then did Snow remember that all they did that night was go to Nimbus Hollows, kill a bunch of people, and return to Bayville. She had not even eaten yet. When she opened the bag, she saw that it was filled with Italian food. She instantly understood that Kiran wanted to have a candlelight dinner. Since when did that jerk learn to be so romantic? She felt all warm inside, and she was even more excited now. She began to set the mood and plate the food. Kiran washed up and sat at the dining table. Snow saw that he was still wearing his jacket, and confusion was written all over her beautiful face. "Why didn't you change? It's not like we're at a fancy restaurant. We're just at home." "I'm afraid of getting molested," Kiran smiled. "Fuck you." "As if I would want to molest you." Snow glared at him shyly. "I'm not talking about you." "Who are you talking about?" Snow was surprised. "She's here." After saying that, Kiran looked toward the door. Snow got even more curious. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was banging on the door. "Kiran, come out here right now." "Holy shit," Snow exclaimed, realizing that Lindsay was at the door. Kiran got up and opened the door. Hearing the shouting, Margaret and Rain came out too. The two were stunned when they saw Lindsay's attire. She was basically stripped down to her underwear. Who was she? Did Kiran have a mistress? "What are you looking at?" Lindsay yelled angrily at the two strangers. "Well, what did Kiran do to you?" Margaret could not help but ask. Lindsay shouted angrily. "It's none of your—" "Mom, it's okay," Kiran said to Margaret. "Are you sure?" Margaret sounded doubtful as she looked at Kiran in disbelief. "It's fine. She's just a little unwell." Kiran pointed to his head. Lindsay was stunned when she heard him call her mom. When Kiran said that something was wrong with her head, she got even angrier. "Kiran, your brain." Kiran tapped her, and she was immediately muted. "Kiran, Snow, and Rain are both healthy. You can't give the York family an unhealthy baby." Margaret sincerely believed that Lindsay was mentally unwell. Lindsay could not speak, but her chest was heaving. Kiran had completely ruined her image. She did not know that the way she was dressed right now looked even more provocative than hookers. How could Margaret not misunderstand? Margaret immediately went up to grab Kiran's hand. Kiran, Snow is a good girl. I even raised Rain to be your bride since she was a child. Don't you have other fiancés as well? Can't you choose a normal woman to give birth to your child as soon as possible? You're my only hope. Wah. After saying that, Margaret started sobbing. Kiran hugged her and patted her back to comfort her. Lindsay's eyes were red too. She did not know whether she was crying out of anger or humiliation, but she was fully sobbing now. She was furious and speechless. Rain noticed that her mother had misunderstood, but she did not say anything to clarify the situation. She could not understand what Kiran was doing. How could he let a woman like that come here? Did Snow not mind? Slap! Kiran slapped Lindsay's buttocks. I told you not to cause any trouble, but you still won't listen. Look at what you've done, causing my mom to misunderstand. Lindsay could not move or speak while Kiran scolded her. All she did was cry. She was so humiliated she could kill someone. She was a dignified young lady from a wealthy family. Yet Kiran played her and left her to die. After being rescued, she had come here and now was misunderstood by Kiran's so-called mother. That was already humiliating enough. But she even got spanked by Kiran. She wanted to beat him to death. Kiran reached out to pull her into the house. You better listen to me. If you start going crazy again, I'll hit you. After saying that, he slammed the door shut. He hugged Margaret and almost vomited from laughter. Margaret was stunned. What are you laughing at? Kiran did not explain. Instead, he pulled Margaret and Rain into their house. Kiran could not hold it in anymore and burst out laughing again. Kiran, are you okay? This time, Rain pointed to her head. How could you say that about your brother? He's so smart, Margaret scolded Rain disapprovingly. Rain was speechless. Why did everyone seem foolish to her, but when it came to Kiran, suddenly he was considered smart? Rain's imagination ran wild. She was even certain that if she were to be with Kiran and they could not have children, her own mother would automatically think it was her fault. How unfair. Maybe Kiran was Margaret's biological kid instead of her. Kiran took Margaret's hand and explained, Mom, Snow and I had encountered some issues, so I asked her to take care of some things on our behalf. Things didn't go well for her, which was why she was so angry when she came here. She's not what you think she is. I see. Margaret finally understood. She nodded and asked, What's her name? Lindsay Ludwig. After saying that, his face became more solemn. He added, She's from PowerHub Investment Group. Her family was the one who wiped out the York family. She's an enemy. Margaret and Rain exclaimed at the same time. Kiran nodded.
Wait a minute.
Margaret suddenly turned to look at Kiran. Did you just say that she's from the family that owns PowerHub? Kiran nodded. What about it, Mom? I was wondering why she looked so familiar. It really is her. Margaret suddenly got worked up all of a sudden, and her whole body was trembling. Kiran and Rain were confused. Kiran, bring me to your place. I have something to ask her. Margaret tugged at Kiran's arm and said anxiously. Kiran felt something was wrong, so he took Margaret to his place. When they entered the living room, the kind-hearted Snow had already given Lindsay clothes to put on. Margaret immediately ran to Lindsay and stared directly at her face. Chapter 449. Her beautiful tiny face, thin curved eyebrows, sparkly eyes, straight nose, red lips, and fair skin portrayed the quintessential features of Western beauty. Lindsay would not mind if Kiran or any other man looked at her like that, but being scrutinized by Margaret, an elderly woman who had just humiliated her, ignited a fire in her. What are you looking at? Can you even see with that poor eyesight of yours, old lady? Slap! After she said that, Kiran slapped her buttocks again. Lindsay did not move. Her eyebrows furrowed in pain, and she looked at Kiran fiercely. She managed to restrain herself in the end, but they could tell that she wanted to fight him desperately. What is your relationship with Maxine Danes? Margaret stared at Lindsay and asked. Maxine Danes? Kiran, Snow, and Rain looked at Margaret in surprise. Why was she asking about a woman with such a beautiful name? Lindsay stared at Margaret in shock as if she was looking at a monster. There's no need to look at me like that. If my guess is correct, you should be Maxine's daughter, right? Margaret calmed down and asked the shocking question once again. How do you know my mother? Lindsay asked, looking surprised. No wonder, Margaret muttered as she shook her head and sighed. Miss, you can go home and tell your mother that even if Kiran were to be unmarried for the rest of his life, he would never marry you. You. Lindsay was furious to hear that. Most importantly, she said it so bluntly and insultingly, as if she was telling her how despicable and worthless she was. She was humiliated at the thought of her falling in love with Kiran and wooing him. Kiran quickly explained to Margaret, "Mom, I don't want to marry her." "I know. I'm just warning you, so you better not forget it." For the first time, Margaret was staring at Kiran fiercely. "Mom, are you okay?" Rain felt something off, so she quickly held her mother and asked. "Kiran, even if you marry someone blind, deaf, crippled, or stay single for the rest of your life, you can't marry Maxine's daughter. It's best if you stay away from her." Margaret stared at Kiran as if she was asking him to promise her that. Kiran was completely stupefied. Lindsay stood there, ready to die of humiliation. "Crazy old woman. What are you talking about? What about my mother?" Kiran did not hit her this time, not because he was not angry, but because he knew that there must be a lot of hidden stories behind this. "Your mother liked Kiran's father, but he didn't like her back, so she ruined Kiran's parents' marriage again and again. In the end, she shamelessly framed your father," Margaret said sternly. "Impossible." Lindsay's eyes widened, her voice trembling. She was confused and nervous, as if she had just been shocked by lightning. Kiran and the others were just as stunned when they learned about the past. Margaret continued, "If you don't believe me, just go home and ask your mother or father. When they got married, Kiran's father specially gave them a pair of crescent pendants as a wedding gift." "See crescent pendant?" Lindsay looked at Margaret in surprise. "Was it the pendants that she and Yvonne wore?" "Yes. If you put them together, they form a circle." "That's impossible." Lindsay was shivering, and her head was spinning. Her mother was not that kind of woman. She felt like she was about to pass out at any moment. "What do you mean impossible?" "That is the truth. If you don't believe me, you can go home and ask your parents. If they refuse to acknowledge it, that means that they're heartless and don't even have a shred of conscience," Margaret insisted. Linda could not bear it any longer. "Kiran, let me move!" Kiran tapped her, and she regained her freedom. She quickly took her phone out and showed Margaret the photo of her wearing the pendant. "Is this it?" Although Margaret had poor eyesight, she could still see it clearly, so she immediately nodded. "Yes, that's the one." "That's impossible," Lindsay murmured again, stepping back in disbelief. She started picturing her mother's gentle smile, and the words she said when she gave her this pendant. "This is the Dane family's heirloom, one for you and one for her sister." Why was it a wedding gift from Kiran's father? If that was the case, it meant her mother had always loved Kiran's father deeply. If she loved Kiran's father, what about her? She was in love with Kiran as well. Lindsay felt like her head was going to explode. She was overwhelmed with grief as tears the size of pearls began rolling down her face. Margaret took Snow's hand and Kiran's hand. "You two must love each other. The York family depends on you." Then she looked at Snow. "Snow, you should give birth to Kiran's child as soon as possible, and don't let those vixens deceive Kiran. Women are important for a Farnley's prosperity." Next, she looked at Kiran. "Don't be tempted by everything the world has to offer. Everything you have right now is the best you will ever have. A woman like Snow is worthy of your lifelong love." Margaret took a deep breath. "Even if you don't love Rain, don't fall in love with a woman like her. They're femme fatales. They won't even blink twice when they kill you." Kiran and the others felt like their acupressure points had been tapped. "Master, mistress, from the heavens, please tell Kiran what true love is." "Boo-hoo." Margaret slumped on the ground and cried in pain. She seemed to be suffering from huge shock. Margaret's words were ridiculing and humiliating to Lindsay, but to Kiran, they were an enlightenment. Snow was even more determined to give Kiran a child through insemination now. "Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. That's not possible. My mother isn't that kind of woman. I hate you all." It was too great of a shock for Lindsay. Yelling, she ran out. Her face looked angry and humiliated as the pain was unbearable. However, Margaret did not speak. She just looked at her with a contemptuous smile in her eyes. That smile stung Lindsay deeply, so she ran off. Margaret stood up and grabbed Rain's hand. Looking sad, she said, "Let's go back." Kiran wanted to help her, but she refused. "You two should have a child soon." Margaret's hopeful face was drenched in tears when she left their place. Kiran and Snow stood in the house, feeling the pain in the air. Lindsay ran downstairs and cried bitterly in the car. At that moment, her phone rang. Chapter 450. Lindsay saw it was her father calling, so she got a tissue to wipe her tears and answered, "Dad." "Lindsay, why did you ask Sonny to kill Mason's son, Maddox?" Finn's voice was deep with dissatisfaction. "He deserved to die." Lindsay was worked up, so she simply answered without a hint of sympathy. "Lindsay, you're too impulsive. Prince Corporation is one of our partners. Even if we can kill those below us, that doesn't mean we should," Finn said while suppressing his anger. "Dad, I don't care what kind of connection we have. I killed him because he's an animal. If I didn't kill him, he would have sexually assaulted me. You better watch out in the future. It caused quite an issue in Bayville. The young people who died aren't just anyone. It took me a lot of effort to shut them up. This kind of thing can't happen again in the future. Finn did not scold her too much. Lindsay was feeling better now. Over the years, she had many responsibilities as the eldest daughter of the Ludwig family. At times, she could be quite willful, but her father had never been angry at her, nor did he ever blame her. That was what made her happiest. "What has my mother been doing lately? Is she still fasting and meditating every day?" Lindsay asked, trying her best to keep her emotions in control. "That's all she does every day?" Finn sounded dissatisfied. "Does she know my sister has been found?" Lindsay asked. "She knows. Is she happy? You have to ask her yourself. I don't know if she's happy or not." When Finn said that, his eyes betrayed a look of resentment. Lindsay wanted to ask her father about what Margaret said, but ultimately she decided to ask her mother when she saw her. If it were anyone else, she might have believed it. She loved Kiran so much that she would never be able to kill him. Her mother was so kind. She fasted and meditated every day. How could she be capable of harming Kiran's parents? Lindsay did not believe it at all. She believed that there was a misunderstanding. She had to hold herself back until she found out what was going on. The father and daughter talked for a while, mainly about the development of Dragon's Mount. Regarding the death of Maddox and the others, Finn merely said a few words to her, and that was it. Lindsay hung up the phone and looked at Snow's place. The lights were still on, and there was a look of frustration in her eyes. "Sooner or later, Kiran, I'll find out the truth, and you will have to apologize." She started the car and returned to Bayville Hotel. In Snow's home, Kiran looked down and ate in silence. Snow teased him, but he did not respond, so she stopped and just watched him eat. Kiran did not even know what he was eating. He was just eating to distract himself. The situation got even more complicated again. What was going on with the Ludwig family? If Margaret was right, they must hate his father because the most terrifying kind of hatred was the kind that arose from love. That was not the main point. What mattered was that Yvonne was under the dual female love spell. That was a classic act of revenge. In that case, it was plausible that their hatred had reached its limit. He was pondering the relationship between Yvonne and Lindsay. Slam! Kiran put the utensils down and said, "I need to go to Bayville Hotel." "What's wrong?" Snow asked doubtfully, as it was in the middle of the night. "I have to confirm whether Lindsay and Snow are really sisters." "Do you suspect that they're not sisters?" "It's not just about my suspicion, but if it were true, then someone is setting up the York family behind the scenes, including the Ludwig family." "The Ludwig family?" Kiran nodded. "The Ludwig family may not know this." "They don't? Perhaps the person behind this is using the Ludwig family as a shield and a scapegoat? Based on what you said, the people behind this should be PowerHub Investment Group." "Not necessarily." Kiran stood up. "I'll decide once I talk to those two. Do you need me to follow you?" "It's okay. You can stay at home and rest." Snow did not want to distract Kiran, so she nodded obediently. Kiran kissed her forehead and head out. Bayville Hotel. Lindsay went into the bathroom after returning. The humiliation and anger inside her were beyond description. She lay in the bathtub, her feet with red-painted nails kicking forcefully in the water. Angrily, she cursed, "Damn you, Kiran. I'll make you kneel before me and beg." Why would he beg you? Just then, Yvonne opened the door and walked in. She was in a white down jacket and thick pants, and her face was as pale as an ill person. Lindsay was originally full of resentment, but after seeing Yvonne, she held it in. "How's your injury?" "Much better," Yvonne said with a smile. "Get some more rest." Lindsay realized that she had nothing to say to this sister of hers. "Did Kiran bully you?" Yvonne was the first to find a topic to talk about. "That pervert." Lindsay's anger surged again. "He's very clever. You never know what he's thinking," said Yvonne. "I just want to stab him." Lindsay looked furious. "You don't have to wait long. He'll come to you soon," Yvonne smiled. "Soon?" Lindsay was stunned. Yvonne nodded. "Yes, he'll be here soon." "How do you know?" Lindsay regretted asking. Yvonne and Kiran had the love spell in them, so they had a special connection. Yvonne stood up and took 2 steps forward. "Sis, you have such a nice body. I'm jealous." "Aren't you pretty too?" "Our mother is pretty," Lindsay answered without giving it much thought. "Mother." Feeling down, Yvonne seemed to be lost in thought. "What's wrong?" Lindsay grabbed Yvonne's hand to comfort her. "I'm fine, sis," Yvonne said while lightly brushing her hand against Lindsay's body, and an indiscernible stream of red, poisonous blood entered her body. Lindsay did not even notice. Yvonne held her hand like an innocent younger sister. Lindsay, a woman as tough as metal, suddenly found herself unable to be ruthless when it came to Kiran or her younger sister. At that moment, the door to her room opened and Kiran walked in.